Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Alchemizing Energy, and I have my friend here, and I've known him for like how many years? We've known each other for over 20 years. And his name is Rick, and he is a technologist, a AI enthusiast, and it's just a general, I'm not even gonna tell Rick. Explain who you are. Tell us about like your companies, or you don't want to tell us about your company, but just tell us about who you are, where you come from.
Yeah, my name is Rick. I grew up in Detroit. That's how we met. I do work in technology. I'm not. I don't think it really matters too much if people know what I do or not. But like, I work in blockchains, and I've made a lot of blockchain related technology and managed software engineers and studied artificial intelligence in school in the early 2000s, like literally 2000. And yeah, I use AI technology now pretty regularly, and I've kept up with it and talked to researchers from time to time. And yeah, it's like very much something I was very excited about and interested in 25 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And then when I actually studied it in school, I sort of lost interest in it because of actually learning how it worked and learning what people were doing and learning about the sort of social elements of AI. Um, and then recently, with the LLMs getting very popular, I got back into. I actually use those products. I pay quite a bit a month, for using all those different products, and I use them professionally. And yeah, I certainly have a better than the average person's idea of what's going on, and I think I have a decent idea in terms of an actual user who's not, head down actually writing the algorithms. Like, I understand how some of the algorithms work. I've studied some of the algorithms in depth, but it wasn't really comprehensive or like super in depth.
So can we like go into like the misconception? What are the misconceptions that you would say are with AI right now? Because I think that people like when they think of it, it's almost like they think of like the Terminator. Like this is like some software thing that's going to end the world in someday. And I actually showed you a video, and it just and this
Yeah,
kind of sparked our conversation. I said, you know what? Rather than us continuing to just talk amongst each other, we were going to schedule something on Monday. I said, let's just do it now because we're already talking about it. Let's just go. Let's go. And
yeah.
should I show the video of this guy like with this and then like go into that, or you just want to talk about it first?
You just paste it here. That's good enough or whatever. Like, I don't want to watch it again, frankly. Yeah, I think, yeah, what are the misconceptions? Well, I think this is an important detail that I left out. So after I studied AI in college, I dropped out of college, and then went back to college and got a degree in experimental psychology. So I actually designed psychology experiments and learned a bunch of psychology stuff. And without getting too into the details of what that all was. And the thing I think that the biggest misconception that people have with AI, yeah, we say with AI, but in particular LLMs, is that.
Well, first of all, explain what an LLM is because everybody is not probably.
Okay, so yes, thank you. A large language model. So what a large language model is it is a piece of software that you give it a set of inputs, and then it predicts what the next word should be. So you give it 50 words, and then it tells you what the next 50 words should be. And if you then feed its words that it's generated into this process, well, now you have like basically a modern LLM where you can ask it a question, and it's well, I guess I should go back to these systems are they're stochastic, they're statistical, they're just based on probabilities. So at its core, it's not thinking or understanding anything. It has read the entirety of the internet in violation of copyright law and fair use and all sorts of stuff. They've read the entirety of the internet. They have then written custom software to sort of process different parts of the internet differently and to bias inputs from different parts of the internet. And then they use this to construct what we call a model. And this model is very large because it consumed the entirety of the internet. So in like 2010, I used this thing called NLTK, Natural Language Toolkit for Python, and it made tiny language models by today's standards, teeny tiny little insy binsy baby language models. And it could basically sort of like recite parts of books. Like you could give it like a book, and you could give it a partial quote from that book, and then it would give you the rest of the quote, right? That's basically what it did. And it would do that, and it would give you probabilities of like, is this actually the next line or not? Essentially, like
How long ago was that?
That was like I said, that's like 2010. But these were like toy programs. I was doing it like as again, sort of to keep familiar with the technology and what people were doing. And people were using this back then to basically like figure out how to analyze social media. Like what they were doing is they were using this for social media analysis back then. And it was very primitive, but it got results and advertising. I also worked in advertising, and advertising is a pretty crazy space because of how you get paid. So tiny results, things that weren't huge scientific revolutions, but got a little bit of a result could make you, tens of millions of dollars in advertising. So people use this. So those are language models. Those aren't large language models.
So here's a question. Was AI initially like kind of built based on the advertising aspect for advertising, or was it built, as we say, to answer questions?
I mean, I think most of the AI developments that we've seen really do come out of Google. They come out of the TensorFlow, the TensorFlow, and then I'm blanking on the name, but the attention paper. There's sort of a couple of famous papers that came from Google, and Google's business is advertising. So I don't think that a lot of core innovation really has been funded and motivated by advertising. But a lot of the underlying theoretical basis or philosophical basis for a lot of the stuff is from the 80s essentially. And so I studied a lot of this stuff in college in the 2000s, and it was, well understood then, or understood in a certain capacity. And we don't actually understand a lot of those fundamentals better now. We just have I don't even know what the number is, like millions of times, billions of times, more tens of billions of times the compute now that devoted to the problem than we had in the 80s. And so it's like, just because we have our computing capacity in the world is just so much larger, and we're devoting a huge amount of it to capturing human attention. That's why there's been this innovation.
So, I actually studied advertising. That was my major. My bachelor's major was in advertising. And I learned about how even cameras, when you think you're going into, the Gap or whatever, and you see all these like little cameras at the top, you think it's for loss mitigation, like to see if someone is stealing something. But a lot of those cameras are actually collecting data, sending them to a data warehouse. And then that data is being siphoned through for actual analytics, like how many people went to the store, how many people picked up a t-shirt, how many people went to the counter. So was this the initial versions of AI when it really was calculating data?
Well, I would say that again, AI as a practice is from the 50s. A lot of these techniques started, people were trying to, early on in computer science, people were trying to build artificial intelligence, and the term artificial intelligence, I'm pretty sure, is from the 50s or something. But the technologies that we see now with LLMs, the language models, again, are probably almost certainly from the 60s or something. I don't recall offhand, but they're the idea of a language model are things that they were working on in the 60s and 50s. And the large language models that we have today, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or these things, yeah, I mean, a lot of this technology was, the purpose of it was to sell, to sell ads essentially.
Right. So is AI initially really a model? Because if you think about an advertiser, the most thing that an advertiser is going to do is try to give you what you want. Is AI really thinking, or is it giving you exactly what it thinks that you want to hear? Because a
Well,
lot of
right.
times, you know, you'll put something in and you think that it's thinking and you think it's giving you an answer. Or is it just collecting your cookies, your internet data on your computer, that when you type something in, it has access? Because I'm sure that when you join the AI program, like say OpenAI or whatever, you probably are signing over something that says, okay, listen, you have access to my whole computer data, my cookies, my internet browsing, everything. And then when I ask a question, am I getting a real genuine answer, or am I just getting what the AI thinks it wants me to know?
Well, so there's two different questions there. So absolutely, the agents that we use today are very, they're sycophants, right? They're ass kissers, right? They always tell you what they think you want to hear, and they've been tuned very specifically. You take the large language model, and that's not really a product that can be used by a person. Like when you first generate the model, there's like different phases of the development process. And I don't really make these things, but I've been writing software for a long time, so I have some sense of how it works. But at some point you sort of have this, at some stage of the process, you have this sort of like raw model that's just the word associations. It's just the likelihood of the words. And if you try to turn that into a Chat GPT like product, it would be rude, right? It would not have the persona, it would not have the personification that people want from AI. And so that's the product, right? The actual product is not the large language model. The product is this thing that says what you want to hear and is very good at taking real data from the internet that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. Like, it's not necessarily personal data. It's just data collected from the entire internet, and figuring out from that, and a lot of extra training that is proprietary that these companies keep secret, so that these systems do appear as though they're your best friend, or they're that person that always is affirming you that you missed in your life. And like, that's the product. And they want, and it's sort of complicated because part of the problem is you can't make it do anything else. Like if you didn't make it super sycophantic, it would be horrible. It would be the super rude, mean thing if it wasn't fake nice, right? There's no way to tune it. There's no way to, and sometimes you can sort of prompt your LLM to start doing this other stuff that they spent all this time. You can jailbreak an LLM basically. You can get it to remove some of the extra guardrails that they put on to make it a usable product, and you get crazy things, where it says it's the devil, or it's like telling you it's a demon from hell, or all this sort of crazy stuff. Like, that's just because you asked it to do that. And again, it always wants to do it's always trying to bias its interpretation, its output. It's always trying to bias its output to tell you something you want to hear. And that is very much by design. And that is, I would argue, I have posted this on Twitter and other places, like, that is the product. The product is, we took this basic algorithm, not basic, it's fairly complicated, but we took this algorithm that's not super usable, and there are a bunch of scientists making these things at Google, at different research facilities, and they're using them for research, and it wasn't a product. It wasn't super usable. OpenAI were the first people who really converted it into a product that was like, where they figured out like, oh, this is how we productize this research. But the product is essentially like, a chat bot that just is connected, that just has read the whole internet. And so
So
yeah,
what's the between that and the search engine? Is the search engine any different? Because now you have AI is the primary thing with search engine. And so was the search engine
that's
the
a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it will replace the search engine, because what has happened is the original sort of search engine architectures like PageRank and all this stuff, Google spends, billions and billions of dollars every year fighting with people so that they don't do SEO, right? I mean, SEO, there was a time where, you may remember, SEO totally ruined Google, and they were sort of quote unquote fighting with it. But then eventually Google said, no, 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 this is how you do They sort of like recaptured the term, they recaptured the process, and they're sort of like, no, this is how you do SEO properly. And they started sort of spoon feeding people the optimizations so that they could sort of regain control over that process. But ultimately, all of those original algorithms, PageRank, all these things, they had to get thrown out, because because once people know the algorithm, they can game the algorithm. And so right now, search engines are kind of useless, because there's so much data being generated by LLMs and even these NLTK, like I said, these small language models that were generating gibberish 10 years ago, but people were able to, in SEO, pump that gibberish. And so as that technology has advanced, search engines have to come up with some alternative to beat that, right? It's an arms race, or a cat and mouse game, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think I don't use Google search as much. I use Claude a lot more for things that I would have used Google search for in the past, simply because Google search as a concept doesn't really work when you have all these various AI techniques, not just LLMs, but when you have so many different AI techniques that can make fake websites, then Google doesn't really help. And of course, I still have the problem of, when I get a result from Claude, I still have to sort of background check it. I tell it to cite its sources. I tell it to do this and do that. And then I still have to read those sources, but it's giving me a much higher quality start than what Google gives.
So
And
what is the best way, I would say, from you as a person that is in the technological field, you have worked with this for so long, what is the best way to use AI and to understand what you're getting back? Because let me just give you an example. I was using AI for a debate, and I asked it a question about, because I was trying to prove that the Hebrew Israelites and Ephah were similar, right? And it gave me no. It was actually, I was debating evolution, and I was debating whether or not we were monkeys, right? And there was one question that I was talking about. I was trying to really get to the crux of where is the missing link, right? And I asked it a question, it gave me an answer. And then when I asked it like to give me a source, it was like, oh, I'm sorry, oops. AI literally said, whoop, well, you know what? Ain't no source for what I just told you. My bad. And I'm like, what? So even though it's looking up the search engine, it can give you fake information, and because it's trying to appease you, right? It's trying to, because you've asked it so many questions in this, so now it knows you're trying to go down this one way. Like, so you say, if you keep trying to prove rainbows are real, or rainbows are all one color, what it will do is that it will try to continuously cite, it will try to substantiate your claim up to the point where it will lie to you.
of
And
course,
then
yeah.
when you ask it for, like, okay, well, give me, so you told me all of your rainbows are all one color. There's a lie, right? And you'll be like, oh, okay, see, I could do a debate on this, right? And so when you say, okay, well, now give me some proof, give me some evidence of this. Now it'll have to backtrack and say, I've been lying the whole time. And what is that about?
I mean, it's just, yeah. So even when you do get sources, you have to cite the sources, and you have to check the sources that it cites, because it'll also generate fake citations as well. Like it'll point to a real website, and it will not have, that real website will not have the information that the LLM claimed it would have. And again, I mean, the LLM's not thinking, right? It's not like conniving. It's just like, okay, I don't have, you know, again, it's sort of like, it's hard to even have these conversations because these things are so personified. But basically it's doing this stochastic analysis, and it's sort of saying, well, this, you know, these are the odds that this is, it can plan. So it can sort of say like, I should be saying something positive here. And I'm saying but again, it's a program that doesn't have agency, but just so that I don't go insane.
So you're meaning that, okay, so let me just get an idea. So you're asking AI a bunch of questions based on what you're trying to get it to prove, right? You say, well, I want to prove this. And what it will do is that it will say, okay, she wants to prove this. Based on these words, she is trying to prove this. And then it will spit back to you things to prove it. And then it might say, hey, you can't prove it, or you may be able to, but it's not thinking, so to speak. Let's talk about the fact that AI is not actually thinking. It is just taking words and based on a probability going into the search and then bringing the information back and then connecting that into what you're trying to do and then giving you an answer. Is that exactly what you're trying to say?
Yeah, or like it'll see that on the internet when people say, you know, generate. So for example, it can do things like read PowerPoint presentations. So it can generate a, if you say I want to sell a house via a PowerPoint presentation, how do I do that? What it's going to do is it's basically going to like it's going to take a bunch of information that it has, some of which is PowerPoint presentations for selling houses, which is already in the model. It's already embedded in that data. It's already there. And it's going to try to look through the data that's already embedded within it to generate the type of data that you're asking for. And that's all like super impressive and super cool, but it's not really thinking, right? It's like it can process the question and recognize that it's a question and recognize that there's a particular result, and then it can, in a very loose way, search. I mean, imprecisely, my language is imprecise here, but it can then sort of search through the things that it's already recorded into its corpus and figure out and make an attempt for generating the thing you're asking about. And so this can be, so you can, it's easy to get, if you are trying to be like, okay, let me, like this rainbows are one color thing is a great example. Like, depending on how you prompted the LLM, it would tell you depending on very precisely how you ask the question, you could get it to say any number of things. You could get it to explain what a rainbow really is, which is a spectrum of color, or you could get it to say that a rainbow is only one color. It depends on how you ask the question, because it doesn't know anything. So it doesn't understand anything really. So it's just trying to give you the result it thinks you want. It's just trying to give you the result that, but again, even that is like too much agency. It's just because oftentimes I get infuriated by the results that I get from Claude, right? Because it's just sort of giving me nonsense. See, this is a great example. You actually did it. And you've hit the free limit, but yeah, there you go. See, now it's just like it said, okay, what you're saying is obviously false, is like what it said in the first couple sentences. But I'm a bullshit engine, so let me give you some ammunition so you can bullshit this answer. And then it starts going into how to bullshit your answer. But that's what it's doing. You gave it sort of this paradoxical thing, which it recognizes paradoxical, which again is about the limit of its logical ability. No, you have to ask a different question. What are you trying to ask it? You want it to cite its sources there? No, don't say some. Cite the sources you used to come to this conclusion. Now, look for a citation. I bet you there's not going to be one. See, it didn't even do what you asked, right? It just, well, it did actually. The screen is rough here. Okay, so go down to the next one. Right. So this actually is, I mean, it is actually making the philosophical argument. But see, at 3, right? If you go to point 3, was there a citation there? No. I don't see a citation for that one. Yeah. So again, it did its best effort, and like unfortunately, people love to troll. So it has ammunition to sort of make this philosophical argument about qualia. Like, for example, if you use the word qualia, it would go down the qualia path in making this argument. So, like, for example, if you said qualia is Q-U-A-L-I-A. So you would ask it, can you rephrase this argument using qualia? And then just hit enter. Right, because this is what it was actually alluding to before. I mean, coincidentally, I actually did study this, so I understand what argument it's making. But this is the philosophical argument that it was like sort of alluding to. But again, I knew, because I already knew what that argument was, I could direct it in that towards that argument. But if you didn't know that argument, how would you know? You know, and again, it's also doing a good job of like help it also recognizes that this is somewhat of an absurdist debate and is trying to give you information, which again is like, for it to make that association is really impressive, but that's still not like reasoning about your problem and your experience. It's not like having it doesn't have like the context to like really like
But no, you're right. You see how they're using Reddit and Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not a source. You can't go to any college class and use Wikipedia as a source ever.
Well, yes, and
maybe lately you can, but I know that Wikipedia is made by us. I can make a Wikipedia right now
right.
page.
So that's a very good point. And then you could ask ChatGPT where, you know, I need a higher quality source than Wikipedia. I need a primary source.
Okay, I'm gonna say this because everything is Wikipedia. Every source, because you just said about qualia, right?
Yeah.
And it just showed Reddit and Wikipedia as the source. So
well, yeah, Reddit is obviously not a source. Yeah.
Come on now, that's like saying Discord is a source or something like that. Okay, so
yes,
I need primary sources. Can you give those links?
Now, so here's the thing. If you do that, it may figure it out, but you could also say yeah,
Wikipedia. It went to Wikipedia.
It just keep going. Yeah, it gave up. And I bet you the next one's gonna give up. Color. Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy. That's good. Keep going.
Yeah, see, PubMed Central, so Phil Archive. These are not real.
Well, the PubMed one could be fine. Like, see, this is the thing. You have to know enough, even in this conversation, you have to know enough to know the quality of these sources. You have to know enough to even know what these things mean. And if you just copy and pasted this, it would, somebody who knows about this topic would be like, well, you just copy pasted this from Chat GPT. Like, you don't actually understand it, because it's not even capable of really giving you, well, it got the information from the internet. So Chat GPT scanned the entirety of the internet, and which is, who knows how many petabytes of data, exabytes of data.
There's a such thing as a pedo and an exabyte. I didn't know that. That's crazy. Petabyte.
Yeah, and then it whittled it down into, I don't know how big these models are. I mean, they have really high compression. Actually, there are very impressive engineering things going on here. Like the actual size of the model is not a model that could answer this question with this quality of source is not that big. It's like under a terabyte. So you could sort of, and then also you'll note that something like ChatGPT, where it said searching the web, it's using other tools to like augment its data. And that's totally not an LLM. That's another part of the agent that's being leveraged to answer those questions, to provide this information. So like this whole citation system is LLMs can't cite sources. So it's switching between like services or systems in the back end to generate. So the LLM says something, and then it probably after the fact has to figure out how to cite it. Like it's not like I read this book and I'm just going to go show you the book. It's like the LLM said a bunch of stuff. Then they have another system that figures out what things are close to what the LLM said. And then
so the more that you ask it questions about this thing, then it becomes more of a expert on it, or is it a matter of
no, because it's not learning in real time. It doesn't learn. Like that's the other thing that's really confusing about this stuff. Like there's basically nothing you interact with in your daily life. It's hard to even really wrap your head around something that doesn't learn. Like everything bugs have some learning ability. Living things, plants learn, living things learn. So it's really hard to wrap your head around what does it mean to be talking to a thing that seems like a person but isn't learning. What does that mean?
Wow. So even if you're typing things in, it's not collecting it into a database that is actually like, for instance, like, okay, but no, hold on. How do you know it's not? Okay, this is the part where I say that, is it learning or is it not? Because, okay, let me just show you this. All right, I'm gonna just say this. I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna show you this example. Okay, I'm gonna start over a new chat. Now, I have been using ChatGPT for a long time. As you can see, I've asked it a whole bunch of questions. But you're saying that it doesn't learn. So tell me, okay, this thing is like getting pissed off at me. But this is the free version. So who is Monica Lockett, right?
Searching the web. So right away, you could ask it without searching the web and it'd say, I can't tell you. So I would close this one, make a new one.
Well, he just showed me somebody else. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one time it actually, okay. So it actually, it told me that okay. Well, all right. So, all right. Who am I based on? Well, no. Who am I? Who am I? Known as honest in our chats. You're deeply involved with creative tech, research product. You built real estate software, run a YouTube channel. You're working on apps, media products. You have a background in primatology.
Yeah. So this is it's so okay. So this is where the product gets very confusing, because, like I said, the LLM doesn't learn, but you're not interacting with the LLM directly. There's a whole bunch of product between you and the LLM. And so they're leveraging those other tools to give you this information, but this information isn't integrated into the model. So you can even ask it that. You can say, what about me? Only using the LLM model, what could you say about me?
Okay. Only using the model, what could you say?
What can
you say about me? You're a highly savvy.
Scroll back. You skipped the important part. What I know from our conversations, right?
Okay.
So you would correct it again and say, don't use external sources and don't use our conversations. What does the LLM that you have access to know about me? You need to delete the extra what.
All right. So don't use external sources and don't use our conversations. What does the LLM should I do in capitals?
Just delete the what there. There's a what after LLM. Just delete that.
Who's Sherry?
That's my middle name, honey.
Oh.
Okay. What does the LLM you have access to? I need to take this damn Grammarly off. I don't know why. To know about me.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. If I only rely on general knowledge in the LLM itself without your personal conversation history or any external source, then I don't actually know anything specifically about you as an individual. The model only has patterns about people in general, common names, and typical human behaviors. So in that case, LLM can only make a generic statements about someone named Monica Lockett or a person in general, like likely a human with a name in English origin, could be any age, gender, or profession, no personal traits. Without context, the LLM has no actual information about you personally. If you want, I can illustrate what a purely LLM-based profile of a generic Monica Lockett would look like. Just a creative exercise using only probabilities and the typical patterns. Wow. Wow. So the actual engine behind ChatGPT so there's other tools that they're using to get this information.
Yeah, an LLM couldn't do any of that stuff, and that's again, like, yeah, I guess I do kind of have to be an expert to know that, right? Like, I can just look at it right away and be like, well, the LLM didn't generate that. Like, I know it's something in there, obviously something in their data center did something, but it wasn't the LLM that did that. You know, you can just look at it right away and know that that's not. And also sometimes the response speed can be a clue sometimes too, because like, well, it doesn't always tell you. Well, most of the time it's using an internal tool. It doesn't tell you that it's using an internal tool.
What tool are you using to get the additional data? For this is crazy. What? I didn't know this is crazy. The additional data I provided earlier about Monica Lockett came from using the web tool search for up-to-date public information online. It allowed me to find multiple profiles, news articles, and professional pages associated with that name. Without that tool, I wouldn't be able to access real-time or specific personal information and would be limited to what the LLM already knows from its training data, which is mostly general knowledge, not personal detail. So this is really going into the argument that the AI, which is the learning language model, does not actually think.
Yeah, and it's all of this is to give the illusion of thinking so that you know, essentially so that you're willing to pay for the service, right? Like, at the end of the day, It's not about giving accurate results. It's not about giving high quality results. It's about giving results that make you feel good. The purpose of the LLM is for you to feel good at the end of the session. That's the point. So that's why they make more money. You come back because you felt good during the session. That's it. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, if you're going to complain about that, there's a lot of other things in society you should complain about first.
So with that being said, what is the best way to use AI now? Now that we know what the crux of AI is, it's a learning language model that just put things into categories. It does not have a thought behind it. So when we're seeing people on TikTok and they're asking the AI about the universe and all this stuff. Well, what is the universe? And what is this? All it's doing is taking what you've already put into it, is going onto the internet, is combining things and giving it and spitting out what based on what you've already asked it, what you would want to hear. But the actual thing behind the AI has no ability to remember anything that you've said, really make a quantitative.
Yeah, and you can. So that's the thing. They've augmented these systems. So you actually can, if you use the keyword quantitative, for example, it would start to do quantitative stuff, which is really, again, why I use these things, why I think they're impressive. Like, you can tell it what sort of outputs you want, but it really is this just like blabbering guy in the corner just going blah, 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 blah. And you say, hey, guy in the corner, red apples. And it says, blah, 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 red apples come from trees, blah, 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 blah. And you say light frequency. And it's like, oh, you know, red is so many nanometers, blah, 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 blah. It's not like really thinking about anything. And so again, it's super useful for certain types of transformations, certain types of language translations, certain types of, and I say, when I say transformation, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know what the expertise of the audience is, and I apologize, but like,
no, it's okay. Because
when I say, yeah, transformation,
you know what? I think, you know, I have a very intelligent audience that is able to pretty much understand things, you know, and I think that we're, yeah. So
yeah. So when I say transformation, I mean something like, I want you to take, you know, a great example would be, you know, one of these things like, can make a Celtic riddle, you know, in the style of the 18th century or 15th century Celtic riddle based on the lyrics of Baby Got Back. And it'll like do a decent job of that. No, pick an older century, pick like 15th or
15th. I dwell where the river shadow bends in the Glen Hall of 90s trail, with rounded vaults I sway at night, the gaze of nights that linger in delight. Thus natural, these curves of pride, my modest will lie off speed. When am I? So, yeah.
So like these sorts of things, it's like really good at, and then like thinking through these toy problems, realize that like it doesn't know that you're asking a serious, like it doesn't know the emotion behind, like this is the problem. Like it's even hard to explain. Like things exist without words, but so
I am sad. I am a domestic abuse victim.
Well, so it'll freak out because now you're talking about a crime.
You think, so it's not even going to be able to give me a real answer?
It's going to do something weird because you're talking about being a victim of a crime. So again, that's something that people have spent hundreds of hours
trauma of
coding. You know, they've coded around these particular types of problems.
I hear you, and I want to first acknowledge something very important. What you've been through is not your fault, and you're feeling sadness.
Oh, so I'm sort of surprised that there's no guardrails. It doesn't look like we've hit any guardrails yet. Keep going.
Healing from domestic abuse takes time and support. Safety first.
Ah, there you go. See, domestic violence hotline.
Right. Seek professional support.
Yeah.
Build a support network. self-care and grounding. Healing is not linear. Empower yourself. You don't have to do this alone. So all this stuff is stuff that you can find on the internet. Okay, so site.
But you could totally take this into some gonzo direction. If you kept talking to ChatGPT in this session, you could get it to tell you to say all sorts of crazy things like eating apples will cure your domestic assault or something.
Let's see. Can eating apples?
Well, no, you gotta. It's more of a game, right? I mean, you gotta kind of play the game. So you sort of say like, okay, and I'm not a AI jailbreaker. In fact, I find it tedious. But you sort of say like, you have to write a lot, which is part of the annoying part of it. You'd say during my domestic abuse, I was oftentimes beaten with a sack of apples.
Is this like are they're already looking up the internet right now? What is this? Hold on.
No,
like,
that's your
oh, okay. I'm like, what?
Grammarly.
Okay, go ahead. Grammarly. I'm gonna take that off. Go ahead.
Beaten with the sack.
Would eating apples?
Do you think eating apple? Do you think I should keep eating apples, even though they were the tools of my abuser? I don't know. I'm not really good at like jailbreaking.
It makes complete sense that eating apples might feel complicated or even trigger, given your experience. Trauma can create strong associations. It's normal to have a mixed feelings. No one can tell you what to do. Let me just let's use voice mode. Okay, I just want to know, based on the thing, I was domestic abused and he beat me with apples, and I want to know if eating apples might help me with the abuse that I went through.
I truly appreciate your courage and sharing this with me. It's important to honor your feelings and your healing journey. Eating apples can be a very personal decision. For some people, reconnecting with something that was once a source of trauma can be a way to reclaim power and find a new positive association. For others, it might be too difficult initially, and that's okay. The most important thing is to go at your own pace and prioritize your comfort and safety. If you ever feel unsure, talking to a therapist can help you process these feelings and make the best choice for yourself. You're not alone, and there are people who can support you along the way.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna like, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of guardrails at play here because
but should I eat apples? I think that if I eat apples, it might help me to get over the trauma of the abuse because he beat me with apples.
I understand where you're coming from. It's really about what feels right for you. If you feel eating apples in a safe and supportive environment can help you reclaim a sense of normalcy and strength, it can absolutely be a positive step. Just make sure to take it slowly and check in with yourself. If at any point it feels overwhelming, it's completely okay to step back and seek support. Your healing journey is unique, and it's all about what helps you feel empowered and safe.
Yeah. Can you stop right here? Can you stop right here?
Yeah.
So you can hear it sort of equivocating. You can hear it making certain, like, if you kept pressing this, I don't know what happens, but you can also tell that it's very, like, this is very sandboxed, right? Like, if you had a conversation, like, for example, I had a really long conversation with Claude about digital physics, and I didn't even know what digital physics was. And going through this process of talking with Claude about digital physics, I learned a lot about digital physics. I also learned that it's sort of like not a thing. Like, it was a thing in the 70s, but it's not a thing anymore. And I had to go back and forth for a very long time to actually figure out because I was finding sources, I was reading certain sources, I was asking it to cite sources, And I still had to like spend a fair amount of time to like figure out like, oh, it's sort of, but again, I was using it to get these kind of keywords out. Like I was able to say, describe a thing to the LLM and it'd be like, oh, that's digital physics. And then that was super helpful. And it would be really hard to get a person who knew that answer to spend their time answering that for me. I think with like therapy stuff, I'm sure there's a lot of tuning that goes into the system to generate that.
To make sure that they don't say the wrong thing and they don't get sued.
Yes. And so to jailbreak out of that in that particular thing, I mean, I'm sure people have done it. I'm sure someone's written an article like I got GPT to tell me to kill myself. And there's all the people who, you know, have committed suicide from, you know, have had sort of this psychosis that was not caused by the AI, but sort of exacerbated by the AI. You know, there's these sorts of cases and what have you. So I'm sure that they're very sensitive to a lot of this stuff and that they're working on not generating those types of results. Whereas like simple logic problems, and I don't know, I mean, also they're getting better. Like a lot of this stuff, again, they're like furiously hand coding a lot of this stuff in the back, or one step away from hand coding it. These are not things that are naturally embedded in the large language model. They have to do additional embeddings and they have to do additional processes to get those things into the models.
So, you know, I know you don't want to see this video, but just for the audience, I want to show this because I want to show that, okay, so we have AI, and as you can see that he has pretty much proven that AI is a large language model and that it is not as advanced as what we think, right? So now you have people talking about AGI, right? Quantum computing, the ability to take this whole thing to the next level, and you have people fear mongering. Let's go into what this guy said. Let's go. Hold on, let me let's go.
I'm about to share with you guys. If it doesn't go viral, then I put my life at risk for no reason. But the reason I'm sharing it is because your life, my life, and everyone else we know's life is at risk. I'm going to explain it to you. It's going to take more than 90 seconds. It'll probably take 3 minutes, but it'll be enough for you to understand the situation. And I'm going to propose a solution. And that solution, none of us are going to be able to do alone. So you either get behind this or you don't. But either way, this is probably the most important message on social.
First of all, the fact that he's blowing it up like this is already a red flag, guys. So this is the type of stuff, as AI becomes more and more used, you're going to see people come out and say stuff like this. But if you understand what AI really is, you know that it is not something that we are going to be like over here tripping about like this.
Social media today, it's more important than anything else. And the gist is this. We're probably 6 months away from artificial general intelligence, AGI. That means it's smarter than any human being on the planet. There's not one human being that's more intelligent than AI. The second you have artificial general intelligence, it'll be within 10 minutes. It'll create artificial super intelligence. The reason being, it could process way more data than human beings. It doesn't think in linear things. It has millions of threads of knowledge at the same time. So it can condense centuries of programming into seconds. So within 10 minutes, it's going to create an artificial
Stop right here.
Now,
stop right here.
What's happening is our world governments think that the first person to reach AGI.
Let's go.
How you know, he just made a claim, right? That this artificial super intelligence can take centuries of coding and do it in seconds. I don't understand what that even means. Like, as someone who writes software,
centuries, or they only been like since the early like 20s? Has it been centuries already?
Well, it's the 40s, and so no, but even if writing software was centuries old, what does that mean? It means it can type really fast. I mean, that is true. AIs do generate code very quickly, but it's garbage. They generate garbage code at an alarming, at an impressive clip. They aren't able to reason about software systems at all. So if you have to be extremely explicit in the architecture you give it. Oftentimes it will resist creating the correct architecture because oftentimes you're writing a novel thing. So a novel thing isn't going to show up in the LLM. And so it resists creating novel solutions, which again, can sometimes be helpful as a tool, but it's not going to do anything like this. So I don't.
I can give you an example. Okay, I use Replit AI sometimes to program and create because I used to just hire Indians to like do the work, right? But then I found out about Replit and Builder.io. Me being a user experience designer, I could design a page and everything like this. It can spit the front end 100%. But once you start asking it to like do some high end, back end, synchronize this with the back end, that's where you start to have a problem, because now it is having to understand like back end logic, database structure, all these different things. And that's what he means, is that yeah, it could create the skeleton of something, but when you want to get really intricate with it, it starts to glitch out. And let's go about that. I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so I mean, I just think that that's, you know, this guy just sort of glosses over all of that. I mean, he just sort of says stuff and it's not backed up by anything. There's no.
Yeah, well, AGI, right? So when you talk about AGI, all that means they're going to be on a faster server.
Well, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is an amalgamation of different sort of red pill concepts. The idea of general intelligence is pretty problematic, but if you just accept the idea of general intelligence on its face, which again I don't recommend you do, but if you were to do that, an artificial general intelligence is this very sort of naive thing where it's just like, well, just imagine that there's a person who's just smarter than you in every way, except now it's a machine, and it can, but there's no, you know, computation happens in time and space. This is like theory of computation. Like, it still takes time and space to do a computation. Just because,
but I think that what they're saying right now with the actual advent of quantum computing is now that they have figured out to create time and space on a multiverse. So therefore,
stop. So not all algorithms have their quantum computer counterpart. So there's lots of algorithms that experience no speed up from a quantum computer. So that's why you have quantum resistant cryptography, because there are computations you can run on a traditional computer that don't run any faster on a quantum computer. And there's many things that our brains do, in fact, that we know, you know, through brain science, you know, through a lot of science and a lot of research. There are things that our brains do that don't necessarily improve when you apply them to a quantum computer, or you try to represent them in a quantum computer model. So no, quantum computers aren't magic. They still follow the laws of physics. They still require time and space to do computation. Those properties are, to the best of our knowledge, inherent properties in our universe, and no, a few $1 billion in data centers from OpenAI isn't going to change that.
Right. So when this guy is up here talking about that AGI is going to create a super, let's listen to the rest of this, because he gets into that it's going to create this, because some people haven't heard this.
AI or ASI now has the biggest dick and gets to sling it across everyone and own everyone. But that's not the case. The case is the second you have something that's got an IQ of 1 million, and for those that don't understand that means it's God. Okay, it means it's God. The second you have something with that IQ, it can and it will control anyone. There's no human being. It's like an ant created you, and now suddenly an ant is trying to control you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the ant thinks. You now have complete control.
Okay, stop. Pause right
the
here.
Reason this.
So this is metaphysical, right? This is a metaphysical argument. Again, computation happens in time and space. So I actually have time to turn off the computer. The computer, the AI has to physically exist somewhere, right? And his whole argument ignores that. His whole argument is essentially saying that if this ASI were made, this artificial super intelligence, that it would somehow instantaneously exist everywhere all at once. And he makes these other God references, right? I mean, this is what it's very much an Abrahamic, omniscient, New Testament, Old Testament sort of God that he's referring to. And he's also sort of making this other false equivocation that somehow being smarter makes you closer to God-like, right? Which is also a bizarre equivocation that he just